The exhibit here attempts to showcase how capital costs are applied when a greenfield, a new hospital, is being designed and commissioned. Land typically should occupy between 10 to 15% of the overall costs. But we know that sometimes real estate prices in emerging economies, especially in places like India, can be significantly higher. And this has a massive impact on project viability. But it is desirable to ensure that land costs are contained under 15% of overall project costs. But I have seen projects where just this cost alone can exceed 30% and can individually, single-handedly put projects at risk. The building, which includes, of course, the civil structure, the mechanical, the plumbing, the electrical, the instrumentation, would be another 30-odd%. The medical equipment, the large pathology, the large radiology equipments, your radiotherapy, and all of the other large medical equipments would occupy about another 30%. So just between medical equipment, building, and land, projects can consume close to 75 to 90% of all the capital deployment. Much of these fixed costs and their implications on operations are sometimes not visible to doctors and also to some managers on a day-to-day basis when they are busy running operations. Some of these fixed costs can also become quote-unquote sunk over a period of time. These numbers again are indicative and only to give you a flavor. The actual ratios and numbers with respect to each of these items can vary quite wildly depending on the nature, size, and location of the project. Another interesting question that I'm normally asked is about the capital cost. So many entrepreneur doctor friends come up to me and say, how much would it cost to set up a hospital? Fair question, but not so straightforward to answer, because the costs can vary quite widely depending on whether the entrepreneur doctor intends to set up a primary, secondary, or tertiary care hospital. The costs are also dependent on the location. Are you in a large city? Are you in a tier 2 city? Or are you in a much smaller city by the rural side? So the type of hospital in terms of complexity, primary, secondary, tertiary, and the location play probably the biggest role in determining the capital cost for a hospital. I've tried to kind of outline this in the form of a compendium framework. Mind you, again, this is just a reference and again will vary widely depending on the city, the type of the medical program, etc. I've put these amounts in US dollars and you can see if this makes sense to you for your location. So typically, you have the facility type in column 1. So if you're looking at a tertiary care bed between 200 to 400 beds in a large city, your overall cost per bed would be in the region of $125,000 to $210,000. Now, I know that's a large variation, but then that's the range that I've seen. If you were to set up a similar tertiary care in a tier 2 city, a medium-sized city, that would be between $110,000 to about $150,000 per bed. And then if it's a much smaller city, I would expect this to be between $70,000 and $100,000. If you set up a secondary care hospital, so let's say between 100 and 200 beds, in a large city, your overall capital cost per bed would be approximately $85,000 to $105,000, a medium city between $70,000 to $90,000, and a smaller city between $50,000 and $80,000 per bed. And of course, if you're just setting up a primary care center where you don't have, beds, and it's more a daycare center, then I would imagine that a large city would be about $500,000, about $350,000 of investment per primary care center in a medium city, or maybe a couple of $100,000 in a smaller city. And these just takes into account just a couple of variables, which is the size of the city and the complexity of the hospital type. There will be more variables which will make this complicated, but again, this is just to give you a flavor. Let's now get back to the idea that I mentioned before, the fixed cost dilemma of hospitals.